And that mainly happened because in rounds 8 and 9 of the fight, Floyd excessively held Marcos Maidana. He held him 12 times in the 8th round, and he held him 10 times in the 9th round. That would be like every 18 seconds he held, or in the case of 12, every 15 seconds he held, which is just too much, okay? Now, I'm going to compare that to the Mickey Bay versus Miguel Vasquez fight, where there were 97 holds. It was a lot of holes, okay? That's 8 holes per round. 8 holes per round is like every 20 seconds. Every 20 seconds, there's a hold. Okay? That's terrible. Okay? So, that fight was terrible. In fact, it got so bad that half of the fight, there were 9 or more holds. Okay? Half of the fight, which was ridiculous. Only 2 rounds in this fight with Mayweather versus Maidana had holds. But I got to thinking, you know, people talk about the Amir Khan fight, and they talk about the Kell Brook versus Sean Porter fight. Now, the difference between Kell Brook versus Sean Porter is the ref let them fight on the inside. So there was inside fighting. And because there was inside fighting and clenching and, you know, tying up on the inside happens. There's wrestling, a little bit of wrestling that goes on. There was 103 holds in that fight. And it averaged out at 8 holds per round, which is round about the same thing as the Mickey Bay versus Miguel Vasquez fight. Okay? And again, that's like a hold every 20 seconds. It's like 8 or 9 holds per round. That's a lot of holds. Okay? And again, there was a couple rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds out of the 12 round fight were really excessive. In fact, no, sorry, 7 rounds out of the 12 round fight. 8 rounds out of the 12 round fight had excessive holding. But the thing about it was, the ref warned Kell Brook twice in that fight for holding, and he let the action happen for the guys to work it out. He would say, work it out. He would tap a hand or whatever to slap down a hand so that there wouldn't be holding all the way through. The other thing was, Sean Porter was coming to Kell Brook. Kell Brook wasn't initiating the holds like in the Miguel Vasquez fight where he was diving in the Mayweather fight where he was initiating the holds most of the time, even though later on in the fight it was Marcos Maidana who was initiating the holds, but that's another story for another day. So I got to thinking, how about Amir Khan versus Louis Collazo? And you will be surprised, Amir Khan versus Louis Collazo only had 74 holds. And again, Amir Khan was cautioned by the ref for holding, and he was then penalized a point for excessive holding, especially holding Collazo's head below his arm. He constantly did that. Okay? But it was only 74 holds in the whole fight, which is an average 6 holds per round, which is basically a hold every 30 seconds. Okay? Not much different to Mayweather versus Maidana 2. Now, I decided to go back in time. And I thought a parallel to Mayweather versus Maidana 2 would be Sugar Ray versus Duran 2. And that fight only went for 8 rounds. But in 8 rounds, there were 38 holds. Now, that fight, again, there was a lot of inside fighting and wrestling and stuff like that. But it actually only averaged out to 4 holds per round. So it was a pretty decent fight. Again, the ref would allow for inside fighting in that fight. But then I said to myself, well, let's look at another historical fight with Sugar Ray and Duran. So I looked at Sugar Ray versus Duran 1. And that fight, which was a 15-rounder, they ended up being 83 holds for the whole fight, which is not bad, but it's still a little bit above normal. That's an average 5 to 6 holds per round. That's like a hold every 30 seconds. Okay? And then I decided, let me look at Mayweather versus Marcos Maidana, the first fight. And you'll be surprised. There were actually more holes in that fight than in the second fight. In that fight, which again the ref allowed them to continue on the inside, had inside fighting, there were 78 holes. That's 6 holes per round. Or a little bit over 6 holes per round, which is like a hold every 30 seconds. So the second fight actually had less holes in it than the first fight.